Hey, I'm Kathleen Moss, a nutritionist and spiritual director who normally talks about lifestyle and nutrition on YouTube, but I'm in the third video of a series of my own personal story and journey on how I have just found out that I've been diagnosed with a precancer of the breast. And so I wanted to share my journey along with you. And today's topic is on the things that I wish someone had told me before I went in for my breast biopsy. So in the last video, I promised that I would give a couple of different videos, one talking about the things that I did want to know, and the other one talking about maybe the things I didn't want to know about what it would be like once I did get there and went through the biopsy itself. So this video is not about all of the details of what happened in the biopsy. This video is just 12 things I wished that someone had told me before I went in. And the only reason someone couldn't tell me is because I wasn't telling very many people that I was going through this. Like most women, we keep these things private because we don't want to worry our friends and family and extended group of support. So I didn't want to worry people, and so I didn't have anyone that had been through this already. And maybe you're in the same position, and so here I am to share with you my tips on how to be prepared for a breast biopsy. So I have them written down because there's no way I would remember all 12 of them without writing them down. So the first thing is to decide, do you want to know what to expect once you get in there? Do you want to watch my next video, which is going to tell you all of the things that happened? And maybe you don't want to know. I didn't want to know that. I didn't want to know if it was going to be painful or bloody or how long it would take or how many times they might go in to take a sample. I didn't want to know all of that. So I didn't want to think about it because I didn't want to get anxious in advance. So maybe you don't want to know either, and that's totally fine. I really respect that. Obviously, that's how I felt too. But get clear on that because maybe you do want to know. And maybe it would help you to ease your anxiety if you did know what to expect. The second thing is make sure that you ask your doctor for a radiologist that they've worked with before. So maybe you have a gynecologist and a PCP, and maybe your PCP is the main one you're talking to about your need for a biopsy, and they don't work with radiologists very often, or maybe they do. Or maybe you'll go to your gynecologist and they do work with radiologists. And so you want to find a radiologist that your doctor has already been working with and who they know, so that your trust can transfer from your doctor to this other person that they trust. And that's what happened for me both times, both with my uterine biopsy and with my breast biopsy. I went with a radiologist that my doctor knew and trusted, and that really helped me to have confidence that I was going to be treated well when I arrived at the biopsy. Third, I would decide ahead of time if you want anything placed in your body. Anytime you're having an invasive procedure like a surgery or a biopsy, there's a chance that they will ask you very suddenly without any notice, can I put this little fleck of titanium in so that I can see next time if we go in again where we were this time. No one told me to expect that, and this was the most upsetting thing. Not that I was terribly upset by it, but out of all the things I didn't expect, this was the most shocking and alarming kind of worrying thing that I had to decide right in the second. And I didn't get a lot of time to think about it. I certainly didn't get a lot of time to research it. So decide ahead of time in this case with a breast biopsy if you want a little tiny little shaving of a fleck of titanium, which I call a microchip because it reminds me of the microchip that's in my dog, but it's not actually a microchip in this case. It's just a little shaving of metal that will show up in the MRI, future mammograms, and maybe even ultrasounds. I'm not sure if it shows up in ultrasounds or not. It's just a reference point. But for me, it was something I probably would have chosen not to put in for two reasons. I know that I have people in my family with history of rejecting metal in the body, so their body doesn't take well to the metal that's placed within. The other reason is I don't like to plan for the worst. I really like to have a positive outlook and mindset, and I feel like if you're giving me a choice to put in something that's going to be a reference point for later when things get worse. I would rather not plan for when things get worse. So that's just me. I think probably most people would decide to do whatever the doctor says is smart. And in this case, the doctor says you should put a little piece of metal in your breast. I have the metal in my breast. It doesn't hurt. So it's not a big deal. But just something you might want to research ahead of time if you're a control freak like I am. And number 4, decide ahead of time if you would want to see the needles that are being used in the biopsy. There are a number of needles, and I think the doctor could very easily keep them out of your range of vision. You know, you're laying down, the needle's over here. You don't need to see it up here necessarily. So decide ahead of time, and you can ask them at the offset, I don't want to see any needles. I know that there are needles involved. I just don't need to see them. I'm not needle phobic, so it didn't bother me that much, but it probably would have taken my anxiety level down just a notch to not have to see them. So that was an insight that I gained just from being in that position. Number 5, decide ahead of time if you want, or if you want to share anything personal with the radiologist. In my case, I had 2 people in the room, really sweet women, really liked them. There was natural affinity, and in order to calm me down and to make things go smoothly, just like a hairdresser might do, they made small talk with me and asked me about my family. And I was in a state of a little bit of anxiety and alarm, and I probably shared a little bit more about my family than I would have on a normal day with a normal hairdresser, because I wasn't prepared that that was going to be part of the deal. I had never had a radiologist in the ultrasound room ask me any personal questions before, so I wasn't really prepared for that. That might be something that comes up, and so you might just want to prepare yourself ahead of time, decide ahead of time how much you want to share about your life. Number 6, really, really simple, and I'm modeling this for you today. Bring either a button-up shirt with you or a sweater like this that has got a really wide opening or is really stretchy, because you might be a little uncomfortable at the end of the biopsy, and putting on like a really tight crew neck or a tight neck sweater might be uncomfortable. And also, I had a white shirt on, and I would recommend any color other than white, just because you might have a little bit of, you have a bandage on, so I don't think you necessarily would have any marking on your shirt or anything, but just to give you peace of mind in case there's a little bit of seepage or something like that. You might want to just have a darker shirt instead of a white shirt. Number 7, I just thought it would be really nice for me, looking back, if I had been able to meet my radiologist with the lights on. So if you've ever had an ultrasound, you know that you have to have the lights off because they can't see the screen where they're looking inside your body if the light's on in the room. So really clear, good reason to not have the lights on. It's also really relaxing to have them off, I think. But I had never met this woman before, and she was going to be doing an invasive procedure in my body. And I think it's wonderful if you can make eye contact with people who are doing these kind of things beforehand. Maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you're uncomfortable with eye contact. But for me, I think it would have been really nice, and I would have enjoyed meeting her with the light on. It wasn't so dark that I couldn't see generally what she looked like, but I don't feel like I got a real strong amount of eye contact with her. So that would be something that I would go back and do a little bit differently. I really liked her though, so I think it was totally fine the way it worked out. Number 8, if you go to the dentist a lot and you find that you need extra Novocaine or extra deadening in your mouth to prepare for the pain that's coming, then you might want to tell your radiologist that, because you will have Novocaine, you'll have some deadening going on. You might want to warn her that you're not an easily deadened person. I am not. I have usually 2 to 3 rounds of Novocaine when I go to the dentist, and I told her that, and she was very grateful, and it really helped her to plan adequately for my Novocaine application. So that was helpful. Number 9, this is something my doctor did tell me, or one of my doctors did tell me, and I talked to quite a few doctors, so I got a lot of advice, but I would buy some Arnica oil or Arnica gel or cream. There's 3 different forms of Arnica products that you can get on the market right now over the counter. Arnica is just an herb, and it's an herb that helps with pain. If you have like a stiff or sore neck, sometimes I'll put Arnica oil on the back of my neck. It also helps with blood flow and bruising, so it minimizes bruising in your skin. So Arnica oil is something that I applied afterward for a number of days, and it really minimized the bruising. I don't know how much bruising would have happened anyway, because I had an excellent radiologist that applied pressure, and maybe I wouldn't have had much bruising anyway. But it's a really good idea, good practice, just self-care, to get some Arnica oil and be prepared to put it on just to minimize that bruising. Number 10, this is something that I wouldn't have even thought of, but I would advise my friends to schedule a phone call to a friend if you're going alone to your biopsy for after the biopsy. I got out of my biopsy at like 5:30 at night, and I happened to have a telehealth appointment with another doctor right afterward. And so I really liked sitting in my car and not having to drive home at that moment. And it just calmed me down to be able to talk to my doctor, who is like a friend. She's very familiar to me. And I'm not one to bring people with me to procedures like this that I can drive home myself from, especially when it's in the work day. I didn't want to have my husband stay home from work for this. So, especially since you don't really find out any news during the procedure. I did find out some news during the procedure, but you're not expecting to, and normally you don't. So if I had known I was going to find out that I probably had DCIS during the procedure, I probably would have brought my husband with me, but I didn't. So if you're going alone, then bring a friend with you. Or sorry, don't bring a friend with you. Bring a friend's phone number with you and call them afterward. Number 11, I would say block out a couple to 2 or 3 days after the procedure to recover physically, but mostly emotionally. Your body isn't going to need that much time to recover. It's a little uncomfortable to move around, but not really that big of a deal. For me, I just needed that emotional time to process. This was kind of a big deal. Someone went into my body, and it was a little bit shocking, and I wasn't operating at normal speed. Part of it is that we're still in the first year of COVID-19. My body doesn't, and my emotions don't operate at normal speed right now anyway. So it's just something that I would say, why not, if you can, schedule out a few days off, or schedule out evenings off at least, so that you don't have any commitments that you're going to need to be running around to. And also just to let your body heal in a really calm state. I think that's really important. And the last point I would say is you're going to have a few days of waiting after your biopsy, and that probably was the hardest amount of waiting time that I've had to deal with so far. And so the thing that I did to kind of help me move forward in that time of waiting was I scheduled an appointment with an integrative oncologist to do a kind of just a meet and greet. It's not something you can do with your regular oncologist because you don't know yet if you have cancer. So you're not going to schedule an appointment with an oncologist or a surgeon because you don't know if you have cancer yet. But you can schedule an appointment with an integrative oncologist, which is a more naturopathic, kind of holistic doctor that helps you do the more nutritional, lifestyle, alternative approaches to healing. And more cancer centers have those integrative oncologists on site, even in hospitals. So this is something that's becoming normative. And most of those people want to do a 15-minute meet and greet before they set up their first appointment with you. And so you can schedule that for right after you expect to hear back the results from your biopsy. And for me, that was just comforting to know, okay, this is the person I'm going to be talking to about that. And that person is lined up and ready to go. Because things can move really fast with breast cancer. With any kind of cancer, they can move really fast. And for me, the worst thing would be to have to move quickly and not do things in a thought through way and not be able to do my research ahead of time. So I was able to choose my integrative oncologist, choose the clinic that he's working at, and set up my appointment with him, and even get a little bit of headway on the intake paperwork with that clinic, because it's a separate clinic in my case from the hospital that I'll be going to see the surgeon. And by the way, it's not a surgeon that will necessarily do surgery. It's just an oncologist that will work with you in your next steps of the journey. And I'll make another video about that, the next steps of the journey, which is where I'm at right now. There will definitely be a video about that in the near future. But those are my 12 things that I wish someone had told me in advance of my breast biopsy. Hopefully that will help you. If you're not set for a breast biopsy at this point in time, that's probably all information you don't really need to know, but you might remember it for in the future if you do ever need to have a breast biopsy. And I think a lot of us women do end up getting them, unfortunately, these days because of all the toxins in our environment, all the carcinogens in our lives. It is pretty likely that a good deal of us will have one. So that's it for this video. Stay tuned for my next video, which will talk about what actually happened to me in that radiology room with the radiologist. Thanks so much for watching. My channel is Seeking Deeper, if you didn't know, and my Instagram handle is @SeekingDeeperHealth. That's where I do all of my interacting with viewers of these videos. I'm not turning comments on for these uber personal videos because I'm just not interested in interacting with people who are being flippant and disrespectful. So forgive me for not having the comments turned on, but find me over at Instagram if you want to interact with me about it, or privately message me, which is even better. All right, I'll see you in the next video.